We're going to get back to the Phillies conversation right now. Charlotte Varnes, she covers the Phillies for The Athletic, and she joins us now to get more into the Phillies as they wrap up their road trip in Arizona this weekend, and we are down the stretch as we get ready for Red October. Charlotte, welcome back to the show. How you doing this Saturday?
Thanks for having me. I'm good.
Charlotte, we got to start with probably what has turned into, it's disappointing because we could be opening talking about Harrison Bader. We could be opening this conversation talking about all kinds of things, Charlotte. But instead, as you know, and you have been on the ground floor where all of these things, Nick Castellanos opened his mouth again, and it just feels like that he keeps putting himself in a position where we can't not keep talking about him. So can you give all of us who are not covering the team, you're covering the team every single day for The Athletic, what is the vibe like? Because Castellanos, he's such a hard guy to read. So, when he says the stuff that he says, whether it's to you guys after the game, whether it's on the Mookie Betts podcast, it's hard to read what the real intent is behind some of his words. So can you give us some perspective on what is the vibe around Nick Castellanos in the locker room right now?
Yeah, I would say up until maybe last night, maybe even just this past week, there was a great line, and my colleague Matt Geld, he wrote a story, and he said all signs point to current peace. And as far as it seemed like Nick was kind of accepting his role. As he said several times, obviously it is very difficult for anyone to transition from playing every day and to kind of taking more of a backseat role, especially when you're the highest paid outfielder on the team. But then I'll admit, I'm not in LA. I'm not in Arizona right now with the team. So I was not present for the questioning that happened last night. But yeah, it definitely seems like there is some frustration, which again is valid. And I think back to Taijuan Walker when he was moved to the bullpen. I think a lot of these veteran guys who feel that they've earned their spot, it can be very frustrating to kind of have to take a backseat role. And then you look at Nick last night, and a couple times, a bit unprompted, he did bash Rob Thompson a little bit. And I definitely think that there is a little bit of frustration there, which is understandable.
You say it's understandable, but let me play devil's advocate with you, Charlotte, for a minute. Is it understandable because he's a veteran, or shall we say because he's a veteran, he should have the awareness to be like, hey, I'm not playing that well. My defense is not that great, even though I've worked very hard at it. Yeah, I'm a veteran, but I also, as a veteran, understand that my bat has been the reason why this team can't rely on me night in and night out. And to me, as a veteran, that should give you more reason to have the understanding to say, I got to do what's best for the team, and it's not just about me. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, I definitely think that is. And he was kind of getting there in his answers last night. And just to go back to what I was saying, I don't think I'm not making any excuses for him throwing the manager under the bus. I don't think that was the best tack to take. But yeah, I look back, we talked to him. It was probably like 3 weeks ago at this point. And I remember writing a story about it because it was the first time we talked to him a little bit. And it was mostly just about him and about his outfield role. And even when presented with the opportunity to kind of say, talk about whether he wants to take one for the team in the situation, understanding that it's for the betterment, he kind of didn't offer that until he was prompted to. And I remember this specifically because I didn't include the question in the article because I found that someone asked a bit of a leading question saying, oh, is it easier to get through this if you're thinking, oh, let's just take one for the team. I'm helping the team by doing this. And he says, yes. And I think part of it too is that Nick obviously spoke a lot last night, but he's a guy who tends to answer in a few words. And I think sometimes that can be a little difficult to work with. So I will give props to him for giving a bit longer answers last night, but I think you gave a fair assessment there.
Hey, Charlotte, it's Michael. Quick question for you. With you being as close as you are to the team and being able to be in the locker room and stuff like that, if I had to tell you or ask you, who do you think would be the veteran? We have a lot of veterans on this team, but if there's one person that stands out that when the reporters leave the locker room and it's just the team, who do you think a player would be the one to go up and put his arm around Nick and say, hey, Nick, listen, we all got to be on the same page here moving forward. We're at the end of the season here now. This is when we got to come together and we got to start playing and acting like a team. Is there one person that stands out for you?
Yeah, I would say there's two. I mean, if you look at Kyle and Bryce, they're both outstanding leaders. I mean, there's a reason when you're looking at all the clubhouse celebration videos from Monday that Kyle's kind of in the center of everything. He has the life of the party, but he's also just a very tempered guy and a great personality. And yeah, I can't predict what happened in the locker room last night. Or again, I'm not on the road in Arizona, and not sure what happened behind closed doors there. But if there was a player to go have a conversation with him, I would not be surprised if it was Kyle or Bryce.
Talking with Charlotte Varnes from The Athletic. She's joining us here on Hanging with Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. Charlotte, you mentioned they're in Arizona this weekend. We are coming down the stretch of the season. And what I thought was interesting was what Rob Thompson said a few days ago, which is he pretty much led on that it's looking like that the postseason rotation is going to be the three lefties and then Nola, which I thought was interesting because Nola has struggled very much. You could argue this is the worst year of his entire baseball career outside of about 3 starts this year. Do you think that is the right decision to keep Nola in the conversation for the rotation? I know for me, Charlotte, I would like to see more Walker Buehler opportunities because that guy's been so clutch in the postseason. And, there's a reason why in the Philadelphia, South Jersey area, we call it the Nola coaster, right? It's the idea that Aaron Nola, as a pitcher, he's up and down, up and down. So do you think it's fair that Thompson is keeping him in the conversation? Or do you think that, maybe there's more to this than the average fan understands about why Nola is in still the conversation for the postseason pitching staff?
Yeah, so right now, I think the conversation about Nola is maybe a little premature because with the NLDS, you really need to focus on having 3 starters. The National League gets the extra day off this year, so really there's emphasis on 3 starters. But I think Thompson believes Nola has earned a spot in the rotation. He's a veteran. Obviously, like you said, it has not been a great season for him. Nola knows that. He's really frustrated about it. But I think that Walker Buehler, obviously, he's going to make the postseason roster. And if you have Nola, obviously your managers are more willing to to take players out quickly. And if things will start going downhill for Nola, I think there is a chance maybe Buehler comes in and does the bulk of the innings if things were to go out or go spiral a bit early. But yeah, I know Rob has said multiple times he doesn't feel that Nola requires an opener. He is a starter. And I think that having Buehler is a good solution to that. I mean, last night he did end up loading the base, but he looked pretty sharp for most of his outing. And I think having Buehler potentially as an option if things were to go downhill quickly for Nola to fill in some of those innings would be valuable.
You just mentioned Buehler as an option, which I think is interesting because, people keep bringing up that Walker Buehler's pitched out of the bullpen. Well, he has 19 postseason games, 1 bullpen appearance. So I do think it's a little funny that the world is saying, hey, Walker Buehler has all this bullpen experience. And it's like, yeah, he's done it once in the postseason. So, I mean, at least for me, Charlotte, I would like to see Walker Buehler get a real shot in an NLCS or a potential World Series because the guy's done it before. And I understand Nola is a big part of this organization, but I don't think anyone needs to be a genius to realize that Walker Buehler is a guy. He actually has better numbers in the postseason than the regular season as a pitcher.
Yeah, and I mean the one outing you're pointing to about the postseason, it was the clincher for the Dodgers last year, which was pretty incredible, and that was pretty unusual for him. But I definitely think there's a reason why Rob did that piggyback situation on Friday, kind of to see what Walker looks like when he's being used in relief, and he pitched pretty well for most of it. That game really helped save the bullpen. So I don't know. I think that it is difficult. I watched a lot of Nola. I mean, I've watched Nola ever since he came back, and it is very difficult not being a little unsure about what you're going to get. But again, I think with especially giving players a quick hook in the off season or in the postseason, I think that potentially bringing in Buehler could be a good solution and having him available whenever Nola starts.
Couple more for Charlotte Varnes from The Athletic, joining us here on Hanging with Hennig live from yesterday's Creekside Tavern in Marmora on 97.3 ESPN, streaming live on YouTube and X in the Dr. Squatch virtual studios. Charlotte, I wanted to ask you about Harrison Bader because he has turned into a guy that I think might go down historically as one of the most important moves this team has made. And my mind goes back to, and I will fully admit, I've said this on the radio before, and I'll say it again, I have been very critical of Dave Dombrowski. I've been very frustrated with how he has handled the business of building this team. But I feel like the Bader move might be similar to what he did in 2018 with the Red Sox when they acquired Steven Pearson. That guy went on to be the World Series MVP. Bader, for me, Charlotte, has become arguably one of the most important players on this team, and on a team where, yes, the superstars are Schwarber, Harper, Turner. I feel like Bader might turn out to be that missing piece for this team.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think any of us could have predicted that a month and a half ago when the Phillies acquired him. But he has really brought an edge to this team. He's brought a level of swagger. I mean, he's just really brought the outfield to life. I love watching him play defense. Obviously, the offense is incredible as well, but it's just very important to know you have such a great presence in center field. I mean, there's a reason why he's won a Gold Glove there. And I do have to give props to Rob Thompson for finding a way to get him everyday playing time. I mean, we were talking about Nick earlier, and obviously he's been an everyday guy for especially the past year and a half. He played for a very long time prior to his benching in Miami earlier this season. And just finding a way to get Bader in there every day has been great. And having him lead off when Trey's absence has just been incredible. Like, he's been awesome. I totally agree with you that Durant has gotten a lot of the attention, which is very well due. He's awesome, but this was very, very good deadline for the Phillies, and Bader highlights that as well.
Charlotte, it's Michael again. With the season coming down to the end now, and you've seen all the teams, and we pretty much know how the playoffs are going to fall into place here. Let's put yourself as a Philadelphia fan here. What is a team that you think maybe people aren't really thinking about that could be very scary for the Phillies to match up against? I mean, me and Josh were talking about it, and a couple of years back when we had Arizona get hot at the end, and then they just ran right through us. A team like Milwaukee, could they be that kind of team?
I was in Milwaukee a couple weeks ago, and I loved watching those games between the Brewers and the Phillies because they felt like postseason games. There was that tension. The Brewers looked really good. I personally am a little out on Brewers in the postseason. I just think that they're a very young team. I do think experience matters a lot. And I mean, that's why you've kind of seen Dombrowski try to acquire players who have this postseason experience because it's super valuable, and they don't hit for power as often as the Phillies do, which I think also really matters in the postseason. But I think the scariest opponent, and it's obvious, I think it's the Dodgers. Obviously, the Phillies came away with 2 out of 3 this past week, but the Dodgers pitching is scary. I mean, if you look at Evan Sheehan, and he it's sort of an opener situation, and that was likely because they might have him pitch in relief in the postseason, and Sheehan totally dealt against the Phillies. So if you have someone starting, a really strong starter, and then you have Sheehan coming to follow, it could potentially be a very difficult situation for the Phillies. But yeah, on the National League side, I would definitely say the Dodgers would be the toughest competition, and the American League, that's a long ways down the road. But I do think the Yankees are coming back and having a little bit of a resurgence, and same with the Blue Jays.
Charlie, before we let you go, and we appreciate you taking the time for us here on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, the Phillies are 2 games behind Milwaukee in the National League standings coming into action today. When you look at the Phillies heading into the postseason, because you mentioned about the Dodgers and their pitching staff, okay, the starting pitchers completely dominated them, but they got to the bullpen. It feels like at times the Phillies are a team that their approach is, hey, if we can just survive the starting pitcher and we can get to the bullpen, we can be like bullpen bullies, basically. Do you think that's actually the strategy, or do you think that just happens to be how some of these games have played out?
Yeah, I think that's how it sort of happens to me. I mean, something I've thought a lot about this season is that the Phillies have scored more runs than any other team in innings 7 through 9. And sure, maybe that's taking advantage of the bullpen, but I've been asking Rob and players why they think that is. And really, they think it's because they have so many veterans on the team, and they know that baseball games are long. Even if you're down in the first, you have a lot of time to come back. And this is a really patient team. It's a really veteran team. So I think that, yes, they're successful at getting through to the bullpen, but they are very good at chipping away at leads during games and then kind of taking advantage of it in those innings 17 times.
She's Charlotte Varnes. She covers the Phillies for The Athletic. Check out all of her work in The Athletic. Her and Matt Gelb do a great job. If you're not a subscriber to The Athletic, well, you should be like me and be a subscriber to read all the great content over there at The Athletic. not just for Philly season, but all sports. The Athletic does a great job, and Charlotte is part of that team. And she joined us right here on 97.3 ESPN. Charlotte, great stuff. Always appreciate you jumping on, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks so much.